Good morning. It has become necessary to address a few issues with regard to the government's handling of COVID 19 and the spread of this virus and the administrative and other methods undertaken hitherto with regard to the containment of the disease. This broke out in Wuhan in China in middle of December last year, and as early as January this year, questions about this were asked in Parliament as to government's response and the steps that are being taken in Sri Lanka to prevent the disease spreading in Sri Lanka. In February, the President cancelled his trip to China, which was previously planned for January and postponed to middle of February because of the virus that had spread primarily in China at that time. We knew this was a particular type of virus that was spreading very fast. And in that context, now in hindsight, we can say that the proclamation dissolving Parliament that the President made on the 2nd of March this year ought not to have been made because, as we all know, when the President dissolves Parliament ahead of the Parliament's term, which ordinarily would have lapsed on the 1st of September, he must also specify the date of the election and the date the next Parliament convenes. And the President, when he dissolved Parliament on the 2nd of March, fixed those dates to be the 25th of April and 14th of May as the next date on which the new Parliament would meet. By that time, in early March, the President was aware that election could not be held. A free and fair election could not have been held in April as envisaged by him. Nevertheless, he went ahead and dissolved Parliament. Later, we found cases in Sri Lanka, people who have been infected with COVID-19, and although the Tamil National Alliance and several other persons and political parties call for the postponement of the elections, that wasn't done, and we had to go through the process of handing over nominations until the 19th of March. A few days before that, when the SAARC leaders met via video link, the President confidently stated that the election can be held in Sri Lanka as scheduled on the 25th of April. All of us knew that that could not have been done, and let aside other issues, we couldn't have had a proper meaningful campaign which is essential for a free and fair election. The Election Commission, of course, no sooner they got power in their hands in terms of the law, postponed the elections on the afternoon of the 19th itself and haven't fixed another date for the election. In the meantime, the President has been handling this matter with the task force and the military in ways that have received commendation from various quarters, and we too have given our support and expressed our satisfaction over several steps that have been taken. Nevertheless, this is a sad fact that must be stated, that we could have prevented a lot of the spread of the virus in the country had timely action been taken in late February or in early March. But in his anxiety to hold the general election early for political advantage, the health of the country was compromised, and the nomination period went ahead A lot of activity took place around political party offices in the districts with the returning officers having to receive nominations, etc. All of which were unnecessary risks that we had undertaken. Now, looking back, we can find fault with the steps that had not been taken. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is to do the best thing that is possible from now onwards at least. There were measures taken to keep people at home through declarations of what is called curfew. All of us know that those measures are also not taken legally. No legal provision has been utilized for declaration of curfew. Immediately when there was a risk of disease spreading, those what we call police curfews may have been useful, but we now know that this is a long-term issue. This is not going to abate in a week or two, nor in a few months' time. Therefore, proper, adequate legal measures have to be resorted to. Otherwise, we will have very serious governance issues, very serious violations issues taking place. The President can declare state of emergency under the Public Security Ordinance and declare curfew under that. He has chosen not to do that. Even without declaration of emergency, under section 16 of the Public Security Ordinance, the President can, by means of a declaration in the Gazette, specify the areas, the times at which people should not go out, and the names of persons from whom permission can be obtained if people are to go out. Section 16 of the Public Security Ordinance has also not been resorted to. There are provisions in the Contagious Diseases Ordinance that has also not been resorted to by the Minister of Health in terms of imposing curfews, although several regulations have been promulgated under that act. The government seems to think that they can have resort to sections 262 to 264 of the Penal Code, but when one looks at those provisions, it is abundantly clear that those don't apply to situations like this, and the government actually is enforcing an illegal curfew on the people. We had not raised this matter thus far because we did not want people to think that this is illegitimate, illegal, and therefore take advantage of that and get on the streets. We want the people to stay indoors. We want people to stay home so that this spread of the disease, spread of this virus can be contained as best as possible. But that is not to say that the government can ride on that kind of situation and impose on the people extra legal measures which are damaging to the democracy in the long term. Also, the Parliament ought to convene. If the President had not dissolved Parliament, Parliament could have met and made laws for the dealing with this particular issue that we are facing today. Many countries in the world have met in emergency sessions and passed laws. This is very, very important because this is unprecedented, and it is the Parliament that is vested with the power to make laws, and that cannot be sidestepped or ignored. Even now, the Parliament can be reconvened. The Constitution makes provision for that in terms of in cases of emergency, even after dissolution. Article 70 sub 7 of the Constitution says the President can reconvene Parliament, and the Parliament will then be active until the emergency goes away or the elections are held. So we urge the President as the first option actually to revoke the Gazette of 2nd March 2020 dissolving Parliament, so that Parliament can come back to life and deal with this situation. We are not suggesting that all 225 members get into that one chamber. That's obviously not what is being suggested. The Parliament in the Maldives has gone online, and it's meeting without physically coming together at any particular point. We can also have resort to things like that. In any case, even for the first meeting, a meeting can be held in the chamber. Not all 225 need to meet. Political parties that are represented in Parliament can agree to have the minimum quorum of 20 or even less if quorum is not raised, and then amend standing orders to provide for different modes of meeting. Now, this is absolutely essential for various reasons. One is to, as I already said, to enact emergency legislation to deal with this issue. Secondly, there is only a vote of account that was passed covering the period up to 30th April. That money is also not sufficient to deal with this issue even until the 30th of April. And on a vote on account, no supplementary budgets can be passed. This vote of account has to be withdrawn, and Parliament must approve another vote on account until the 30th of April. After the 30th of April, the President cannot withdraw from the consolidated fund. There is an opinion or a circular that has been issued by the Secretary to the Treasury, which is unconstitutional. He has opened himself to allegations of violating the Constitution. Such situations should not happen, and we must be governed by the rule of law, and for that to happen, Parliament must meet and make financial provisions. It is also important to note that this situation will not abate for quite some time. Even if we successfully contain this spread of the virus now, it will take at least another 6 months before proper human activity can take place. And that brings us to the third issue of the elections. No election can be held at least until the end of this year, or perhaps we may have to go on till next year, because until the threat of the virus is totally eradicated, it is dangerous to get involved in a process like the election, because that then will give rise to a new risk of this threat re-emerging, because election would mean campaigning, meeting people, is the very antithesis of social distancing, and that is important for a free and fair election. And so giving all of these matters due consideration, we request His Excellency the President to revoke the Gazette of 3rd March by which he dissolved Parliament. The Election Commission also has yesterday issued a letter drawing the attention of the laws that are extant, so that people can deal with this issue properly, legally, and be in a position to deal with the virus and its aftermath and various other matters connected thereto. Thank you.